Okay. All righty. Well, the meeting is called to order and I have no further remarks at this point. So public comment. We have one member of the public here.
Do I have any comments? No. I'll let you go on.
Okay, all
Do
right.
we have anybody on the?
No, Mike Blackwell said he would be joining, but he is not here currently.
Okay, so boy, we're making record time here. Approval of the December board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll. Malcolm?
Aye. Aye.
Yep. And I'm an aye. So motion carries. Meeting minutes from December are approved. Then the next item is the treasurer's report. So that's gonna be Deb.
Okay, so I'll just highlight a few things and we'll save some of this for our annual meeting, but as of December 31st, we had only $268,000 left in the construction account. We have $43,000 in the cumulative conservancy cash account. So we have a total of just under $2.2 million in assets. Our bonds payable are $1,090,000, and we had small amounts withholding taxes of about $5,600. So total net worth, if you will, and I always like to point out that that net worth includes a lot of undervalued fixed assets. They're not really as they're represented on the balance sheet. If you look at our December activity and then our year to date, we've received about $45,000 between Brown County, Monroe County, and the cumulative conservancy improvement fund. A couple highlights from the year before that we got $40,000 from the community foundation. That's showing year to date. It wasn't in December. And also, of course, the rental income on the large barge, which was a little over $30,000. So far on expenses, so that's a total revenues through the calendar year of $790,510. Total expenses are $1,112,000. The largest expense, over half of that being $607,814 toward the sediment management project, which puts us at an overall net loss of $321,000 for the year. So looking at comparison of December 22 to December 21, we're a little bit up in revenue. We had 790,000. The year before we had 768, but that included dredging and riprap income of 85,000. So we actually performed like way better this year from an income standpoint.
I think we're within close to $30,000 of our projected revenue, having not even done the dredging income.
Right. And so overall, our total expenses were, as I said, the $1,112,000 compared to the prior year of $804,870. Well, last year we had only spent $155,000 for the whole year on the sediment project. And this year, as I indicated, it's over $600,000. So looking at how we compare to our budget, I think we did really well. We're within about $30,000 of what we budgeted. We budgeted park admission fees pretty ambitiously. It was still a big increase over the prior year, but we were short about $6,700. Watercraft permits, we budgeted pretty aggressively at $140,000. We were shy of that by about $5,000. But you know, what's kind of surprising to me is our sublease and access fees were up almost $8,000, you know, more than what we budgeted. So you'll see when we go to the next agenda item, the transfer of funds, there's so many items related to dredging and others that, you know, they're way under budget. Our equipment operator also way under budget. our insurance is over budget and you had a reason for that, you know, we budgeted 50,000. I think you said our contract was like 52 grand.
Yeah.
And we had some special events that we had to buy insurance.
Correct,
for.
yeah, they had us take out a policy for the fireworks show this year, and the other addition was when I sliced my hand open on the barge and had to go get stitches, so that ran into workers' comp for those additional visits.
Oh, you're the increase.
Yeah.
I get it.
Haven't
So,
thought they raised the premium because of that?
There is a multiplier for workers' comp. Yes, if we have injuries, and we had just gotten down to 0. So we're back up a little.
Well,
be careful.
what good's the insurance if they're not gonna cover it?
Well, workers' comp is just a crazy thing. I mean, think about the workers' comp we paid out on Roger Edwards last year.
Yeah.
You know, when he had that accident and wrecked all up on Dorothy Lane. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, it's really hard having audited, you know,
Mhm.
entities that get that. It's really, it's very expensive insurance.
It is, and they bill out the workers' comp hospitals. It's insane what they actually bill out for any type of injury, and then what they can get it down to. So,
Any questions or comments on the December financials?
You had, seemed to say that we were in pretty good shape. Or even though we spent a lot, we're still within the budget amount by and large, even though we spent a lot more on the budget. I'm just
Right.
trying to
Right,
understand.
because
we're in
we
pretty good
actually,
shape.
right, yeah. Yeah, we're still within what we budgeted because, Stephen, we budgeted for a loss of over $600,000, I believe. I'm paging back up to that right now. We budgeted for a loss of
Well, that's what I thought
655,000,
was in the budget.
but we ended up coming in at only a loss of 320.
and we're being encumbered. A lot of the funds that we were expected to pay this year are being encumbered into next year's unused
Which are
dredging
making
contract.
Up for that shortfall, 320.
I'm looking for the reason you told me I should be excited. So is that it? Is that the
No,
reason?
no, wait for the presentation, we kind of got a bigger picture of things, so, anyway, okay, any other questions, comments? Anything to add, you guys? Okay. Alrighty, and next, I guess I would like to ask for approval of the, December reported claims, the approval of the vouchers for $149,174.13. Of those amounts, I mean, the lion's share, it's a $85,000 payment to Heartland and a $42,000 payment on the bond. So those are the biggest things. And then our dear accountants finally billed us almost $5,000. I guess she finally got time to bill us.
Yes.
So anyway, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. I don't think we technically have to do the roll call.
Oh, that's right,
Uh,
because
don't have
no
somebody
one's
on
on
Zoom.
that.
Correct, yeah, you can just do all eyes.
If Mike comes on Zoom though, then we would have to, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the next thing is, so that we pass any audits and are good with the DLGF. I'd like to ask for an approval of transfer of funds. And so basically what we do is go down and any amounts we were over budgeted, we need to transfer money so that we come out even on those line items from other amounts that were under budgeted. So in total, it's $33,839 that we need to transfer. And the sheet is in there, and some of it's a healthcare stipend, increased wages. We did add that position for Jessica, so we didn't have anything budgeted for her at the time. Pretty small stuff. The insurance was over budget, $5,400, so. And we're
Can you explain to a non-accountant, transferring money from where to where?
just on the, we have to get our budget approved and it goes down by every single line item. So any line item that now, if you looked at the December financials year to date, shows a negative, like we were over our budget. We basically take money where we were under our budget and we
Okay.
just reclassify it.
it's
So,
shuffling
yeah.
things in.
It's always in the general fund.
yeah,
So
we're just
it-
zeros.
it's all in the same fund, so if we go over. a little
You just
bit-
take from one bucket and put it in that.
We just make all the negatives positives, and we didn't have to transfer that much.
No, and then it kind of shows us what our actual expenditures were for those on our final financial.
Exactly. So we
What
can
were
carry
the
it.
transfers then?
So this top area is where we were over budget for the line items. And then this bottom area are the line items that I transferred money out of. And I purposely didn't transfer money out of any of the dredging, the staffing, and those type of charges, just so I could show like a total savings from that.
Okay, so retirement and FICA, wouldn't you have a pretty good idea on that ahead of time, or? I mean,
For the retirement was based off of the total salary positions, but we lost the equipment operating position, and then Ross came in late, so we didn't have 3 actual positions getting retirement benefits.
okay.
So that's why that was so high.
Didn't think that would be a moving target.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Yes, please.
I will so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, same sign carried.
Okay,
Hey, am I
motion
done?
carries.
I guess so, yeah. Quick update for the election, both District 3 and 7 are unopposed, with Brett Huber in District 3 and Mike Blackwell in District 7 running unopposed. So we will not hold an election in February. They will automatically be sworn in unopposed. The next thing that we're getting into, and I do have a PowerPoint, and it's gonna go into a larger discussion on the PowerPoint, this large equipment liquidation. And then we're gonna kind of talk about some of the financing that's going on, our overall picture of the dredging project. Let me go ahead and bring this up to share.
And you might email this to the board members.
I can do that too.
Done, I think it would be good for like a fundraising meeting and things like that.
So the equipment that I'm really looking at liquidation under our current operations is most of the heavy equipment besides the small barge and the small excavator. Those items for consideration would be the 2017 Cat 725 articulated off-road truck. The biggest reason being for that is, one, we passed a resolution saying we're not doing in-house dredging. 2, since 2020, we've put less than 300 hours on this machine. So it is just sitting there the vast majority of the year being unused while maintenance is still going on. And we actually had, it's due for a full maintenance and service, and the estimate on that, including transport up to India, is $8,000 to $10,000 to do that full service, which is kind of similar to what it was for our KCX80 when we sent it to Louisville for full service. Since we don't have mechanics on staff or a shop, these heavy pieces of equipment do need to go out for these full services, since we don't have the in-house ability to do that. The other piece of equipment would be the 1998 Komatsu PC300 excavator. Just in 2022 alone, we had over $6,000 in maintenance for that piece of equipment, and it was only used for a little bit of disposal site prep. And I'll actually get into some of the other costs if we were to need pieces of equipment like this intermittently.
That's the big one.
Well, that's the big excavator, yeah, the Komatsu PC300. Just with the age, I mean, this is a 25-year-old piece of equipment. There's still major things that need to be done with it to use it safely, such as all the couplers on it, all the bearings where everything connects together with the bucket. I think the cost of it is going to get more and more expensive to maintain, and especially as they just sit there. That's the worst thing for heavy equipment, is just sitting there and not getting the daily maintenance that it needs with being used.
Do you know how many hours are on it?
No, we had to replace the computer on it, I think during the intermittent time that I was not here, so in 2012 to 13-ish, from a lightning strike. I would say there's probably total 12,000 hours plus on it, probably actually a lot more than that. But I don't have the knowledge of the record prior to that, so we only had it from the new computer on. The other would be the 1994 D4 dozer, again, a very expensive piece of equipment. A very old piece of equipment. The value on that, from what we've heard from McAllister and other people looking at it, is probably around $10,000 that we would get at it.
But we only paid 28,000 for it, is that right?
Would you have a fixed asset
I
sheet on it?
do.
That sounds
Yeah,
about right.
Look at this if you want, but I think
Yeah.
that kind of gives us a little bit of thought on that. So that was the cost back in 2010.
Correct, yeah, 28,000. Started estimating that would be around $10,000. Again, hasn't been used in about 2 years. Don't have the ability to do maintenance in-house. It's an older piece of equipment that's just aging and is gonna cost more and more money. I don't think I could go start it right now if I wanted to. And so I really think we should get the cost out of that. And then the 1987 carrier truck, that no longer functions. The transmission went out on that before we purchased our new truck, and that was kind of the impetus, is that was a 30-plus-year-old piece of equipment. Just getting more and more expensive to fix, find parts for, getting very hard. I mean, so that one just needs to be surplus. I'm not sure there's much value in that unless you can find somebody to bid on it for the parts that needs the older parts. So the proposed method for these different liquidation options would be the first one, the CAT 725C. And in our board packet, we do have a consignment agreement with McAllister Equipment. I had initially looked, we don't have the expertise in-house really to advertise, write descriptions, and kind of do that whole bid process and make sure we're getting something kosher. I
And
did.
We have to do the bid process because we bought this.
Correct, yeah. So I did the other options are utilizing a state-approved online auction site, or you can hire a purchasing and buying agent to do this. I reached out to Ritchie Brothers with Iron Planet for their auctions. They charge a 12% commission fee, which is huge when we're talking about a $200,000+ piece of equipment. So what I did is there's actually a new local sales rep for CAT, and we had contacted them before, and they said they don't necessarily do appraisals on equipment that they're not interested in. But now they say they're very interested in it. They have a consignment option where they would advertise it, deal with all the processing. I talked with State Board of Accounts, and this does satisfy the state code for using a purchasing, selling agent for that. They came down and appraised a piece of equipment, and they appraised the equipment currently at $225,000. $1,000. We purchased it for $220,000.
We purchased it for $235, I think.
It's on there, 235. So 235. So it's still valued, even though it's 2017, within $10,000 of our original purchase price. They believe we can get that. They said they would advertise it at $230,000 plus, and if there's not any acceptable bids that would come in from that, they said they'd be willing to put an offer on that. So I think with putting less than 300 hours on it in 3 years, the cost of ongoing maintenance, and then not utilizing it for our current operations, you hate to have this piece of equipment just sit here, increasing the need for maintenance when we're not utilizing it. When this seems like an opportunity where we could recoup essentially all of our costs that we have into that machine.
Remember that we paid for that out of the bond money, for those of you that were around, and we actually footed out of our operations like 35,000 because we originally took a note out on that. And so when we got the bond money, then we paid, the 200,000, we paid the note off for that. But just to kind of preface this whole conversation, in case I missed it in the beginning, but we've been talking about underperforming assets and what we can do to less burden our freeholders with these additional taxes. How can we get our hands on money, and this will come later, to be able to maximize the capacity that we have now for the hydraulic project. So that's kind of where all this is coming from.
And then the other method,
Why did you buy this and then it wasn't used?
Well, it was partly because the old one wasn't working. At that point, we were trying to manage a failing in-house dredging
We
operation.
paid a lot out.
We did.
And we utilized it for some of the disposal site prep for South Shore Drive early on, yeah. So that was the impetus for that.
Didn't we have to pay out a bunch to rent something before we bought that too? I
We
thought it cost
purchased
us
that,
so
or we were
much.
actually renting that truck
Oh, we were
prior,
there.
and then we
To
purchased
not.
it. So we got it down, we were able to test it out.
But I think they applied the rental.
I
didn't they?
think so too, yeah.
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 So now what are they charging for consigning?
So they would be a 5% consignment fee.
It's better.
Yeah, and that's why I said they'd listed it at 230,000, to see where the bids are. That way they could take their commission and we could still come out pretty whole.
Now McAllister there in Bloomington? or-
They are a huge one in the state. They're primarily based out of Indy, but there is a Bloomington location as well for rentals.
So they would come and get it?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, they would bring it up to the lot, do all the advertising and everything.
Well, my question, this makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm kind of new, and it sounds like we're not using stuff, or it's outdated, or it's, basically not functional. Makes recommendation, I think Mr. Black feels otherwise.
Is he on now? Did I
He
hear
looks like
somebody?
he's on, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my question is, this seems so logical and straightforward, that what is it that we're giving up? I mean, what do we, we're not burdening the freeholders with a lot of cost of this stuff. Yeah, are we going to throw the cost of maintaining or doing this stuff on the freeholder's shoulders? So is that what we're giving up?
No, I think what we're giving up is when we bought the initial dredging operation, as much as there was some discrepancies with how people dealt with Levi Worthen at the time, we bought Levi to run that operation. He was a farmer who worked seasonal. He was a heavy equipment mechanic. He only had to be off time in the off seasons for planting and harvesting. So we never had a budget for really a mechanic, maintenance, salary positions, anything like that. So once we lost that position, we couldn't find anybody to come in and work seasonal part-time for that. And then the other thing that kept happening, probably the first 6 years of my tenure here as the manager, is every single meeting, we were sitting in the meeting being essentially chastised about why the operation's not more efficient. Why are we constantly broken down? Why don't we have 3 different crews for one seasonal position?
But
There
it
wasn't
was
much
livable
thought.
since then,
Correct.
and we've changed our
Correct.
strategy.
And at the time, we were moving, an average of about 10,000 yards per year. Well, this year, we've already taken out 60,000.
Yeah, we were trying to do it in-house. And turns out it wasn't very efficient,
Yeah.
And so we had this equipment and all this stuff and we, worked at it for a few years and like I said, it just wasn't working out and, fortunately, we now have a process that is.
And I think I would kind of like to, let's run through the presentation and we can come back real quick to some more discussion on
You basically
that.
had your in-house needs that you didn't do.
So the in-house equipment needs that we have now, one, the emergency lake work, which we have the small barge and the KCX 80 excavator, which we're not proposing to get rid of at all. I think we do need those pieces of equipment on the water. Debris removal, again, the small barge and the CX-80, that's what we utilized this year. We had no issues accomplishing our debris removal with that equipment on hand. Can we pick up a 150-foot log like a toothpick? No, but you can cut that log in half and you can pick up that 60 to 70 yard just fine. So we were able to do all of our debris with that equipment.
Because we put that thumb on too.
Correct,
like
yeah.
$12,000 or something.
We put a thumb on to help with that debris removal. So we're able to do all of our debris removal in-house utilizing this equipment. As far as park and disposal site work, we use that KCX-80 all over the park. When we have debris, when we're doing earthwork, for maintenance projects. So going back a little bit, if there was a need for the large excavator rental, so say we want to do in-house, we have like a part-time operator that we trust and we wanted to do a large excavator to do some disposal site clearing. If we were to look at renting an equivalent sized machine of the excavator, you're looking at $2,800 a week or $8,500 a month. So we were over 6K just in maintenance last year for that piece of equipment. So if we wanted to, we could go rent a brand new piece of equipment for a month for not much more, get our work done, send it back. We're not responsible for maintenance. We know it's gonna work. It's not gonna break down unless when we're spending lots of time chasing around parts. The triaxle trucks, that's what we generally use right now for our disposal site prep when we're clearing out dirt to give to people. We hire a truck and a driver from one of the local hauling companies at about $100 per truck driver per hour. So we'll hire 5 or 6 triaxles, we load into those and they drive them. Our off-road truck can't be driven on the road. So we utilize a triaxle, and we currently do that right now for our disposal site prep, is to use that and to outsource it.
And you load it with the CX-80?
You can, yeah. We would use the Komatsu before, and again, if we were doing something where we wanted to hit it real hard for a week, that's where you could potentially look at renting a larger machine for efficiency there at the weekly rate of $2,800. Send her back home. The articulated off-road dump truck for the same size that we have would be $3,600 a week or $11,000 a month. Now, remember, that's due for its full maintenance schedule, so we're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 for that maintenance alone for putting less than 100 hours a year on this machine. So if we needed to use that for a month, sometime down the road, we're like, hey, we're gonna come in and do some work that requires this. For the cost of an annual maintenance on that, we can rent a machine for the month, send it back. We're not maintaining that. It's not sitting there. We don't have the facilities to do this. We don't have the staff to do this. And unless we wanted to do an entirely different operation, it just doesn't make sense to have in-house. So I'm gonna do a sediment removal, the project overview, kind of where we are in the financing.
Does this have to do with the
Yeah,
equipment?
it kind of all relates.
It all ties together.
Because our issue is we need the money.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, we've been talking a lot about this, just trying to put together a big picture. Where are we and what is our strategy gonna be going forward? And what are we gonna need? And what capacity do we have today, which is way more than what we have the money to fill?
So the current financial snapshot to date, here's our expenditures. McAllister, $225,610 for the truck purchase. The United Earthwork, $432,700. That was the creation of that South Shore Drive disposal site. Heartland Dredging, $330,000. Christopher Burke, $77,000, 56 of which was the permitting and bidding for the disposal site creation, additional $8,000 for the valley design and permitting, and then $12,000 for contract oversight between the disposal site creation and what they're doing now, where we submit the raw data and they verify the yardage removed for payments. So our to-date expenditures are $1,065,000. The estimated remaining expenditures is Heartland Dredging, and this contract includes that 20% increase change order that we did. So I have $724,000 remaining on that contract. Christopher Burke, based on the past years for the contract oversight, is about $5,000. And then the pond planting and maintenance is $100,000, which would be spread primarily over 3 years. And that's based off a quote from JF New for the planting and a 3-year management plan. So we're looking at another $829,000 in expenditure on this current project.
But we couldn't plant and wouldn't incur that expense until it's full.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, that's correct. So the estimated total project cost is $1,895,000. That's all in with the disposal site creation, the dredging, planting, everything. The project,
Just
the revenue
we've
sources.
agreed to so far
Correct.
and what we're tied to on contracts.
Correct. The revenue sources that we had available for this project are bond sale revenue, which is $1,188,000, because there's a $12,000 fee for the whole process. Our 2023 special benefits tax additional dredging assessment, which comes to $425,000. And that's where we doubled the special benefits tax to cover that. And then additional utilized funding is we did pay out of our checking account of $35,000. We initially took out a note from People's State Bank to purchase the truck. We paid a little bit on that, then we got the bond revenue, we paid off that balloon note. So when we look at those
I'm
funding.
gonna say, I think we should add, like, before we finalize this and send it out, the purchase of the land that we made out of our funds, because that was for the disposal site, the $102,000.
All right. And I think in February, we'll come back with a little bit more.
We will, yeah.
I'm not sure why, but I thought that the bond overhead cost was $100,000, not $12,000. Am I wrong?
There was additional monies that are not included in this for our Ice Miller, the bond counsel, and the attorney. So there was cost in that as well with Ice Miller and.
The 12,000 is what we have to pay to Old National to be able to oversee all the payments and the repayments and bonds. So we basically got 1.2, but yeah, we did pay attorneys and things beyond that.
too.
And
So I
if you
thought that's
really want to look at our
That was
costs,
prior to the bond
It-
monies.
it'd be scary. If you really want to look at the costs, let's throw in Shrewsbury and all our consulting fees up until this point. But we're just kind of trying to start where we right now, like once we got our bond money and going forward.
But you got a good deal on the bond.
We did.
You got a real good deal.
So if we look at these sources, the supplemental funding that would be needed from our reserves from the general fund, and remember our cumulative maintenance fund, the CDs, we didn't renew those. We cashed those and put them into our account just so we did have some type of buffer there. It's about $247,000.
Does that show on there? It's covered.
Yeah, it's covered
on
by
the
this.
screen.
Oh,
Oh, that
part
may
of it?
That black thing is, yeah,
interesting.
lower right is blanked out.
So it's basically saying the shortfall between the cost and what we have so far is 247,000.
It's because that's on top.
Yeah, and that's because of their thing.
Anyway, it is
I like that.
247,400.
Okay.
$250,000.
All right, so.
Which we're kind of short today.
All right, so yeah, we're short that based on those funding sources, which were directly applied for this. So looking at our capacities and current capacities and project total, the two sites that we have permitting for now is our upland settling basin that we created, an initial capacity of 120,000 yards. And the overflow pond, which based off the bathymetric survey we did a few months ago, is 150,000 cubic yards. So remaining capacity, this is one, we haven't touched the overflow pond, and then the upland settling basin, we put just over 60,000 yards in it this year. We have that asterisk with the 50,000, the spillway capacity is 120,000 yards. But once you start getting over that 100,000, it's gonna be based on the water quality on the return flow. So there's no time for settling. You're gonna have to stop because of water quality coming back out of that pipe. So you're not gonna hit the 120,000. So that's why we're estimating about 50,000 yards remaining. For the 2023 project that we're going into now with a contract extension, we have, or change order, we have 80,000 yards, which would be estimated to be removed and placed in the overflow pond in 2023. That gives us a remaining total capacity of 50,000 in the upland site and then 70,000 overflow pond. So we're looking at additional 120,000 capacity between our two sites.
That we have now. if we
After
had
this
the
year's,
money.
after this year's.
Right.
Yeah, so with that. No, I need to update that 70,000 was for just the pond. So looking at the capacity to finish the overflow pond, which we can do a one-time permit extension, so it would lapse the permit in 2025, in April 2025. So we have to do all of our work in the pond before that happens. So we're looking at another 70,000 yards remaining in the pond.
So our current permit goes to 2025, or we have to renew it to get it to
The current
2025?
permit goes to May of this year,
That's
and
right.
we're allowed a one-time permit renewal. And we actually talked with DNR today to make sure I had that verified. It was a 2-year permit. When you renew the permit, it'll be a 2-year term. And then you're only allowed one renewal on this permit.
Are there any hoops you have to jump through?
No, not really. They said just request it, get it in time before it lapses. So they said they'd recommend at least a month and a half before it lapsed to send them the letter requesting the renewal. And that said it shouldn't be an issue. It's just a simple email, give them the permit number, request the renewal. So the estimated project cost, and this is in the future, this is in addition to our 2023 project,
And
About
what's the
70,000.
Okay, this is just the.
That's the yardage remaining in the overflow.
Because we're gonna
pond.
stop on Upland and we're gonna take that 80,000 and we're gonna put it over there.
That's correct. So the estimated project cost for that 70,000, and this was based off our current contract. I think just those straight numbers was 512,000. Since there's likely to be some increase in costs, we wanted to give a range of $500,000 to $600,000 for that 70,000 yards to go into the overflow pond. And then again, the permitting will expire in 2025.
Then on top of that, we need the planting costs.
Yeah, and that was mentioned earlier, about $100,000 is the estimate from JFNU for the planting and a 3-year maintenance agreement. So the current project timeline, 2023, 80,000 yards to be placed in the overflow pond. Heartland dredging does believe this will go quicker and it'll be more efficient since we're not pumping up that big incline to get to the site.
And that's with our existing money.
Correct, yeah, so this is in the current contract.
Okay, and so how far is that gonna take us on the, this stuff?
Oh,
It's hard to tell.
Okay.
I think with this whole project, all said and done, we'll have the majority of 2 and be pushing into zone 3.
Okay.
Were the 80 and the 60. So you're saying we're gonna get, with all this, we're gonna get 140,000 out, right?
Correct, yeah. All this, we're looking at 42,000 yards essentially. So in 2023, the remaining 80,000 from this current contract. In 2024, we would have to look at bidding the remaining capacity for the overflow pond at approximately 7,000 yards. So we would be looking at, how to finance that in 2024. And then in 2025 would be planting the overflow pond. And if there's financing, bid remaining yardage in the upland site of approximately 50,000 yards. And then ongoing through all this is going to be trying to find an additional site for the future. And we have actually called in locates for all the utilities on a parcel on North Shore Drive that has been in discussion before. So we're actively trying to pursue that.
The city one with the, well,
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, let's talk about the drying down and the time period. Now, we don't know too much about that because our anticipation was that, at least at the upland site, that it would go down and then we'd have more space.
Yes.
Capacity.
So we're really kind of looking at, if we look at our
Oh,
current
sorry.
upland disposal site, so assuming that that's our only site that we have, and we're gonna, project based on that now, because it's what we have in hand. It essentially allows us to have an ongoing 3-year hydraulic dredging cycle. Where year 1, which would be starting the cycle, so that would be when we complete any of the dredging that we're doing now, finish that remaining capacity in the upland site.
So yeah, it would be 2026 then.
You're probably
Saying
looking
We're
at-
gonna do that 2025.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
2026 is year 1.
Correct. So we would allow for the drying of a basin and we build up our funding reserves because we will have to pay to get that dirt removed. That's a lot of sediment. Year 2 would be bid out and have the removal of the sediment in the upland basin. And the issue is, and what a lot of the costs incurred is that has to be trucked out of our basin. We have nowhere to put that type of dirt. I did talk with United Excavating after we finished that earthwork, and they kind of gave me the range of $300,000 to $400,000 to remove all that and move it to quarries. Essentially on the south side of Bloomington is where they thought would be the closest place to fit that kind of capacity. So we are going to be looking at that to remove the sediment so this site can be reused. And then the final amount that can be removed from the site is going to be a little bit of a learning experience once we get under the equipment to see if we can get that full 120,000 yard capacity, or if once you get into the groundwater, it's going to decrease that a little bit. So year 3 would be bid out the hydraulic work for the available capacity that we have in that upland site. So this really puts us on a 3-year plan where we fill the basin, you let it dry, you pay to remove it, and you fill it again. So that's with what we have now. So if we're looking at a cash flow example, and I utilize this income of 425,000, because that's what that current hydraulic assessment is. On this 3-year cycle, year one, you would have the money come in, the 425,000, there's no expenses, because we're just keeping that pump down to allow it to dry and help us build reserves. Year two, we're looking at that approximate $350,000 to clear that site out. So that would give us a net profit of $75,000 that year. Year three, and we base these numbers off 100,000 yards at the current project hydraulic rates. We have the income of 425, the expense of 750,000, so we're looking at a net loss of 325,000. Well, that 3-year cycle gives us a net operating cost of $175,000, which you put into the dredging coffers, so we can build that up over time. If this example, now this example does use the numbers that we have for the special benefits tax, thus the need to raise money elsewhere if we want to reduce that. But these are based off what we have coming in on this tax. If we can raise money through the capital campaign, you could split out that income between the taxes and what we have coming out of the capital campaign and the lake limit enhancement.
So when you redo this, if you would put those actual years, because you're thinking 2026, 27, and 28.
Yeah.
So then we had already counted on our 23 assessment.
Mhm.
So it's like we have 24 and 25 to work with, so there might be a strategy in figuring out what do we need and smoothing it all out and making it less of a tax and doing something in 4 and 5 as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if I read this right, this 3-year cycle would end up costing us approximately $175,000 every third year in order to make this happen.
Oh,
In addition to the taxes and all that stuff.
Right.
Okay.
In addition to so about that's like.
No, that's a net. So that was based on this example, we would have $175,000 left over.
Left over.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, okay, I'm got it backwards then.
So we could look at, based on what we have there, as we build up the coffers a little bit,
You
you
could
could.
lower taxes a little bit in order to.
Correct, yeah. We've got to get that buffer in there though to have that. So this,
Because you're
if we
counting
keep
on
the
it.
current rate,
Right.
would result in the $175,000.
So you're saying, yeah, because that income totals, and that might be good to do that too.
Mhm.
The accountant in me, $1,275,000 less the million expense, and that's what leaves us with that.
And we will, and I will work with Debbie on this.
And obviously these costs too, we're gonna learn a little bit more as we proceed, how much and how easily can we remove that dirt? How much will it dry out? Those are kind of 2 question marks still for us.
We've just been talking so much about needing like a plan, and then, we've got all this capacity right now. There've been a lot of discussions about how can we get the most out of this hydraulic dredging, and so I don't know if really we have to.
So it's a huge difference between the in-house operation where I don't think we're breaking even on revenue and removing only 10,000 yards on average a year for that little bit of time versus going to 60,000 plus in a given year. It's an order of magnitude higher if we can get to that 100,000 mark, which is what we have to do. It's not an option to not do this. And that's why I kind of proposed that 3-year cycle initially, because it's mowing the grass out here. It's going to be ongoing in perpetuity.
So
Until less
you
is-
talked to United, whoever it was, the earthworks place, and that's a legitimate approximate cost that for $350,000, all that dirt could be hauled away.
Correct, yeah, and they said they had quarries and stuff that they could use on the outskirts of Bloomington to place all that dirt. Yeah,
I mean, it's an estimate, I'm sure.
No, I think,
Yeah.
I thought it'd be difficult to get rid of the dirt. I thought
Yeah.
nobody'd want it.
well, that's the issue is we can't do a triaxle at a time or else we'd be digging forever to get rid of that. So we are gonna have to pay to reuse that, to take that sediment out and to make it use it. So that way we can get on a tighter cycle instead of saying 5 years to get rid of that dirt before we come back for another
What would
project.
they use if not triaxles?
One for us internally.
I don't.
what Adam's getting at is we need to pay to get it disposed of. We can't rely on, you know, what in January,
No, I-
John comes and gets two
Some local builder's
triangles.
not gonna want
He
all that
comes
work.
and gets three, you know, we
But-
can't.
To me,
Yeah.
another unknown factor, like when Les said, cause you go, okay, well, we got this capacity, well, how deep can we dig the lake? Like, how much work can we do? But we don't really know that yet, because we know from the studies that we've got 100,000 coming in every year. So when you say, how far can we go? It may just be the same boatable area. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, and that's the biggest thing,
that's-
and as Malcolm has said before, that initial bay is the sediment capture area. So the more capacity we have there, the more we capture and the more consolidated it is for removal. So that kind of comes back to the initial thing with the equipment liquidation is we have this equipment sitting unused. We don't have the capital staff to continue that operation, and how intermittently we use it. I think you'd be better off in the long run renting a piece of equipment for a week versus a month, having something that's new, maintained, it's not gonna break down on you, and then you send it out.
Plus, we need the money in this year.
Correct. Yeah.
I agree with all of that, okay?
Seven.
My question would be, what are we going to do with the North Shore disposal site, the Possum Trot site? We're gonna lose the ability to take care of it ourselves unless we rent the equipment. Are we gonna maintain the permitting on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Rule 5 permit, and then even this year, we have budgeted $20,000 for disposal site prep. So we can rent a piece of equipment if we needed to. So we have $20,000 in there for disposal site prep. So we do need to keep that open enough so private contractors could come in and do private
Correct.
dredging.
Right.
And actually, like Shannon McCall Dredging is coming in to do work at the marina here in the next couple of weeks. They've been doing from land and they're bringing a barge in. So we've been talking with him as well, that we have a list of 40 or so people looking for private. So if he mobilizes to continue with
Because
that.
he's the one that's out at Lake,
Okay,
at
so-
Heritage
Heritage,
Lake, and you
yes.
tried to get him, and he had some other projects going.
They
on
did, yeah.
Last summer.
Since we don't have ice on the lake though, they're gonna come out and start in the marina for a private job there. And then we're gonna give him that list to contact.
And where's that dirt gonna go?
It would go to our Possum Trot site.
But, okay, so now they bring barge up and there's no truck to put it in there, so how do you handle that?
They have trucks.
They-
They're a dredging operation, yeah, they have their own equipment for that.
And so are they also using a backhoe then and?
All there is, they have their own barges, they have their own backhoes, they have their own trucks. They have everything to run that operation. And then what we would do over the winter time is to still, as available, get rid of dirt as we can to keep that open so we can continue that. And we also have our other site, remember, on Spillway Road at Kenny Clark's property, where he's very proficient in getting rid of that dirt because he is a contractor and earth worker. So there's generally always capacity there as well.
Okay, how about the shoreline restoration aspect? Where does that fit in? I know you're dredging out anything, we do put it in the box in.
We can do that with the equipment that we have with the small barge. But again, we don't have the operating staff. So I do think that may be something that we would contract out if we have an area that we want to do, we contract it out. We had looked at before, we actually received a maintenance contract from a college dredging, for an example, from Heritage, where they had an annual $40,000 maintenance contract where they had to guarantee a minimum of $40,000 worth of work. So that's something that we could look at as well, to bring a company in to do that.
Whose ticket would the shoreline stabilization be on?
It depends who the property is. If it's private property, I mean, right now, we have quite a few people that bring in, even Thomas Docks has a little barge. And we've had some people on John Young Road and Tunnel Road that have hired them out when they're doing dock work. And they load up riprap at the office, they
Right.
go there and install it.
But a lot of the places where we need riprap are probably city property.
A lot of ones, and that's something that'll have to go ongoing, but if we see that there's a parcel of shoreline that we need done, I think you contract that out and you knock that out.
How big is the Possum Trot site?
like acreage.
Or
I'm gonna say it's
capacity.
close to
How much could you store?
5 acres.
Well, that's all. Could that be enough on site?
The current one that we have now for hydraulic dredging, will then we lose the east end site. Yeah, so I don't think, I think we need to keep that open so people have the ability to hire a private contractor.
Is it in
to
the
do that.
floodway?
No, I mean, we have the Rule 5 permitting
Yeah.
for that, so we do need to keep that open.
Well,
Hasn't this been informative?
So how much money would this make? Somewhere around 225 when all is said and done.
So looking for, yeah, I mean, 225 is what they suspect that we can get for the CAT 725C. The Komatsu D4 and Carrier, we do an advertising seal bid. McAllister said they're not interested in that. If they were to buy it, all they're gonna do is strip it down and sell off parts to people that need used equipment. So we would put that out to bid. Their estimates where you may get up to $30,000 for the Komatsu if you can find a buyer. The D4 dozer they think would go for about 10,000. And then the Carrier truck, if we can find somebody to come in and haul it off, I think that would be a deal. So,
to answer your question, I'm excited. After listening to all this, and I understand about the large equipment, yet when you go into the 3-year plan, and you say with the present amount of taxation, we're gonna come out $175,000 ahead each year.
Not each
No.
year.
No, each cycle, every
And
3
we
years.
just threw
Every
that
3
in
years.
there.
and that's based off the current tax rate if we did that. So we could adjust that to do more of a break even to lower taxes.
I would
before we build
think-
up.
That if we're not, he's just looking at 23 and then 26, 27, and 28. So I mean, I would think that we see how our fundraising going and try to take a look at it. Maybe we can ratchet down the tax and
Mhm.
smooth it over,
Okay,
you know, the 5 years instead of just like this year and then you're off. And then I don't think it would,
Yeah.
there's no way that freeholders would put up with, we're paying this, now we're off the hook, now we're putting more on. But, and I'm not saying we have to do this, but it's like, we just really wanted to look at where are we going? And you've brought up a lot of times, we need a plan and we're looking at fundraising and
well, but I'm trying to say is, okay, it's $175,000 you come in every 3 years using this plan. So I'm the fundraiser. And they're saying, wait a minute, you're already getting $175,000 every 3 years. Why am I gonna give you any money? I mean, you're getting the money from the tax, so I'm gonna give you money so you can reduce the tax. I mean, I'm just trying to say, we gotta be very clear cut about what we're gonna tell people. And how do you sell them on giving money so you can reduce someone else's tax?
well, and this is where it gets into the whole strategy of the park. And what do we want to do and how do we want to enhance the park and the bathrooms and the double ramps and things like that, you know, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I talked to one of my neighbors that has all kinds of resources to give, but you know, it's kind of like, well, I'm already paying the tax, you know, so I think the donation piece is gonna, you know, we'll meet tomorrow, but I mean,
That's
it's
a key
like,
thing we're gonna have to figure out with Christie's help.
yeah.
How do we get this done in a way that you're gonna sell it to people, not actually turn them into cynics and say, I'm not gonna give you a dime because you'll just double the taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if we're to break this down to a net zero, I mean, you're essentially taking $50,000 off of each line item, so that brings it down to $375.
But
If
it's
that was
still a
break
lot
even
because
site.
that was with doubling people's taxes.
is,
I mean, I
yeah.
haven't got
Right.
my notification just yet. I don't think of what
Mhm.
ours is gonna
We're
be,
not gonna
but
clarify, we're not gonna double the tax, we're gonna double the lake assessment part of the tax.
right.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Right.
And then based on the fundraising, we massage these numbers as we get to that 3-year cycle, once we're done with our current capacity.
If we need to work that through with Christie though, because again, it's just my history with working with nonprofits, that someone will build a building and have their name on it or something they can see, you know, but it's not like they want to pay for ongoing salaries and ongoing this. I mean, digging dirt will be a tough
That's-
sell.
Well, this is the feasibility part.
Right.
Well, that all comes out good then, because this is basically self-financing. If we can
If we can do it.
And then the fundraising is toward the park and other things that are much more interesting. to,
That's-
you know,
that's-
other people.
That's where I think we may end up.
I would disagree with you as a general statement. I would say you probably got a whole bunch of different attitudes about giving to the park versus saving the lake. And I
True,
don't
true.
think you're gonna find it. Everybody says, oh yeah, I want to give money to build new restrooms at the park.
Well, beyond this, what we need is a plan, honestly, most organizations want to build endowments so that it throws off X number of dollars a year for ongoing maintenance. We don't exactly know what our ongoing maintenance is right now. Like, we don't know how quick everything's gonna come in, at least in my mind. So we can't say this is what it's gonna cost every year. I think what I believe and what I believe this represents, that the staff thinks, that Adam thinks, is just that we got this hydraulic equipment here, we got all these pipes and stuff, we need to maximize what we
Yes.
can
For
right
this,
now.
this initial project.
And
So
then-
that might be the thing.
And kind of
that
move
we-
forward.
That might be the key we hang our fundraising.
Then there's a potential 3-year cycles outside of this current.
Yeah, don't
project
share it with
that's going
anybody.
on.
I mean, well, I guess it's all. Yeah, it's already on YouTube.
I mean, so for our current operation and capabilities, we don't need this off-road truck. Honestly, for debris removal, I think my best plan of action would be to rent an industrial wood chipper. We unload directly from the barge into this wood chipper, haul off wood chips. Give
Or
them
use it
away.
for mulch.
Or mulch. I mean, we don't need that. Or we could go out and you could buy a hydraulic dump trailer that we could pull with a truck to accomplish that same thing. It is very overkill. We may have done 4 loads of debris in that articulated truck this year. It was literally ran 4 times from the ramp 200 feet away to where we dumped that debris and then sat the rest of the year.
I think that what I'm looking at is, this sounds like a very reasonable thing to do. And if it doesn't work, you can come up with another
Right.
solution.
Well, I think that's what Adam tried to say, that there are backups that are less costly,
Yeah.
if we should need it. And you're not saying we do need it,
Mhm.
but if we should.
And with equipment shortages, it's not like we bought this truck and we're selling it at $100,000 loss. We're essentially trading this back in
Yeah.
for what we have into it. I mean,
Not
it's
gonna
like,
let it sit and depreciate.
exactly,
Value.
exactly, for how little it has.
So,
So what I would like to get is
Motion.
talking with the State Board of Accounts, I need to have on record essentially a motion that says we no longer believe that the large equipment here enlisted is necessary for our operations, ongoing operations, and that we would like to liquidate those assets utilizing a selling agent, McAllister, for consignment with the articulated off-road truck, and then doing a sealed bid process for the remaining 3 items, the excavator, Matsu large excavator, the dozer, and the 87 off-road truck.
So you want us to make that proposition to you?
can we make that motion?
Can you-
I would request that motion.
Why don't you, I would like to move what Adam said. So now we can have discussion. Oh, we gotta have a second first.
I second.
Okay. So if you can put that into a paragraph or something, I'd be very happy to sign that.
Yeah. Because I was looking at the wording you had here, and I didn't know, just past and future needs of articulated off-road truck and Komatsu excavator are being assessed. Minimal usage and lack of in-house dredging have rendered the equipment unnecessary for operations. We approved to have McAllister consign.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sell it under consignment.
I don't know.
Does.
If
I think
you
we
can-
vote now.
I don't see a reason.
Okay, you don't need any time to wordsmith it.
No, because we can, it's a motion that I
Kind of, it's
propose.
kind of the way he had it.
Yeah.
You just need to add the thing about having McAllister do it, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But I'll restate the motion. I would request a motion that we move forward with liquidating the CAT 725 off-road truck, Komatsu excavator, the D4 dozer, and the 87 off-road truck through consignment with McAllister and through sealed bidding let's authorize both of those. And to sign the consignment agreement with McAllister.
So
Okay.
moved.
Seconded.
Who's
Okay.
taking notes since Jessica's
We'll
not
take a
here?
vote. Mike, are you with us? Mike Blackwell? Are you with us?
Yes,
Doesn't look like it.
yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What are you saying? Are you talking to me?
We are now. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay, all right. So did you hear the motion and everything?
yes, I've been trying to listen. It's hard to listen when everybody's talking over everybody, but that's okay. Yes, I'm okay with getting rid of the large pickup truck or the large dump truck.
You vote in favor.
Well, I'm getting rid of that. I think on the other equipment, we should call Butch Evans. He priced all that equipment probably about 15 or 16 years ago. I'm okay with the sealed bid, but I don't know why we're not using Butch Evans from Bloomington. We contacted him last year when we were looking at getting rid of some of the equipment. But I am in favor of getting rid of the.
You need to use Butch Evans as a selling agent.
Yes,
Well, the motion states just to utilize a selling agent or the sealed bid for this piece of equipment, so we can look into that.
Okay.
Just the consignment would be the McAllister is to make sure we can get the funding for the 725.
I'm good with that.
So I'm not against looking at a selling agent for that other equipment.
So we'll go with whoever gives us the best deal
Yeah.
and has the best markup.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll take a vote by roll then. Malcolm?
Aye.
Okay, I'm an aye.
Aye,
I'm an aye.
Okay,
good.
motion passes.
You have the motion or not? All right. That's a lot of information. Let me get, where was that on that?
You sure you're okay?
So that was a large equipment discussion. Next, and these should go pretty quick.
Yeah. Next item,
I had let's actually do the barge lease. I think I had the causeway sublease stuff. I'm gonna jump to item D real quick, and that should be pretty fast. I have spoken with Heartland Dredging. They would like to utilize the barge for this project. They said they're not willing to do an extension for $30,000 again. They'll also probably just go out and rent a piece of equipment. I'm not sure they're incredibly happy about the idea of purchasing the barge because it's so large. They're not positive that it'll fit their future needs. So they said they would be willing to go up to the $15,000 mark for a lease for this year. All other items would remain in place. So at the end of 2023, we still, as the LLCD, have the authority to force the purchase of that. And that also gives us a year to decide if we can find somebody that's very interested in it and we think we can get more money to do a type of bid or consignment process. That gives us another year for that. So we have it on there. If we were to move forward with it, we would get essentially $75,000 total if we did force the sale. The $30,000 last year lease, $15,000, and then the additional $30,000 for purchase. We bought that barge for essentially $200,000, but we would have, at the end of 2023, we would either say, yes, we want to force the purchase of this barge, or we could say, no, we'd like to go through an additional process. So it buys us a year.
I thought they wanted it at first.
Yeah, I think it was a good deal when they were looking at the 1-year lease on it and then the purchase on it for the $60,000 total. I don't think it becomes a good deal when you're looking at, in their eyes, if you're looking at $90,000 between 2 30-year leases.
And you're talking about that
and
big
the
barge,
purchase.
right?
Correct, yeah, the one
You
that they
paid
didn't use.
$144,750 for it.
Well, with
With the
the
push
push.
boat,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
And
gotcha.
so, we can force them to buy it?
Correct, that was part of the initial
And
lease.
charge them another 15 on top of that? I mean, that seems kind of
Correct.
unethical.
Yeah, no, I mean,
No,
essentially-
the-
because they're gonna use it all year.
Yeah, they're gonna use it
They
for
were
this
supposed to be
year.
Done with it in
Yeah.
2022.
Okay, well, did they have the option to buy it now or at the end of the?
Yes, I mean, we could have forced their hand to purchase that barge right now.
So are we gonna, I mean, it'd be better for them than to buy it now and save themselves 15,000.
Or we can up what we would get out of that, guaranteed by at least 15. And then look at the sale or afterwards.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it just seems like they've done good work for us. I hate to make them do it if they don't want to. I mean, it sounds like they're getting screwed out of the deal.
No, I think they were happy with that. And then I did talk with the State Board of Accounts to ensure that we wouldn't have to go through a full process again for the lease bid where we did request for proposals. And since the project is still ongoing, and since we have a contract in place, we can extend that contract for the lease purchase. So what would be on the table would be to extend the lease through the December meeting of 2023 at a cost of $15,000. And then at that December 2023 meeting, we would say, all right, you purchase for the additional 30, or we're gonna keep the barge. And then
Well, wouldn't they be better off from their end purchasing it for 30 now?
Well, we're not,
um,
we're looking at, how are we better off?
Well, I'm trying to. I'm
So
just trying to
this
do
is
what's
what I
right.
want to do.
this is what they're okay with. And
Well,
but-
and they may be thinking, if we don't push them to buy it, they won't, and this way they'd save themselves potentially 15 grand. Because they might think that we're gonna get to the end of this and say, we made 45 out of it right now, let's go to the open market and see if we can get more than 30. So that we get out ahead and they technically get out
Yeah,
ahead
but
as
you've
well.
not really had a discussion with them.
No, I did, so I just,
I can't speak for them. What I can speak is that they're on board with the
This.
additional lease at the $15,000.
Well, they know what they're getting into.
yes, I think this was seen as a win-win for both people, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I would do is I will seek a motion to extend the large barge and push boat lease sale agreement through 2023 for the additional cost of $15,000 for the 2023 season. All other contract items remain as written in our initial agreement.
I will make that motion.
Second.
When you do that wording too, though, because like in this resolution, it just says large barge, so that's why I keep getting confused, but we've talked about it includes the push boat too.
Correct.
Okay, so we ready to vote?
Did you second it?
Just
Yeah,
want
we
to
gotta
ask
do
Mike,
it.
he's ready to vote?
Yep. Mark, okay, Malcolm?
Aye.
Steve? Aye.
Aye.
Deb? Mike?
Just a point of discussion. I'm an aye, but I remember now why I reached out to Butch Evans. When we first put out this lease, I was against the purchase for 15,000. Butch Evans sold Dick Payne's first barge in 2006 when Dick Payne built this new large barge. He sold it in Alaska for $175,000. So, you know, I'm good with them leasing it again, but when it comes up in 2020, whatever, remember that Butch Evans can get a lot more money out of this thing. I'm an aye.
Yeah, I think that gives us time, Mike, to readdress it and,
Yeah.
and look at it. We want to get the most we can out of it.
Yeah, I think it's the best of both. It gives us, keeps it on the lake for now, but it gives us the opportunity to look at selling it for additional money. All right, I'm gonna jump back to item C, which is sublease. And I actually have two things on the sublease. Let me go ahead and share this PowerPoint again. Firstly, I am just gonna state, we've talked before that we're coming close to being out of room for non-adjacent subleases. I think we're pretty much at that point with all the sublease applications that we have here. I'm not confident we could have more than probably 2 maximum on the causeway, and there's only a handful of potential sites. Or sorry, on Spillett Road, there's only a handful of potential ones on the short causeway. So I will come back. We've been talking about a policy. I would like to come back in March since we have gotten to such a low amount of room. And then essentially moving forward, we're not really gonna be able to have many new non-adjacent subleases. And I'm gonna propose at that point, and we'll write up a resolution amendment that any future non-tier one being adjacent properties with structures on adjacent improved properties would require a meeting between the applicant, the manager, and the director for the area where the sublease is to be placed on a case-by-case basis, because I think we're down to the nitty-gritty on those. I don't think there's much room for those, so I'm really fine with, having to go through that process. That being said, we did have a recent property purchase on South Shore Drive. It's one of these parcels located right off the causeway. They had met with myself and Les Wadzinski about 2 weeks ago, probably within the past couple of weeks. And we went out and we're looking at the locations. I don't believe that there's any issue with the location place. There's room. They're very local to it, so it's not like they're gonna be having to drive vehicles and park vehicles. They can just walk there since there's not parking, so I don't see there's any safety issues. The applicant name was Max Good. Les, if you'd like to weigh in on that, if you had any concerns or.
No, we kind of scoped out the location to be sure that it wasn't crowded to anybody else. And, that's good deep water there too, so they don't have to go out real far. We talked to them about that. I think they were happy to hear that because it's fewer sections of dock. And, and we just, gave them some names of different dock companies they could check out. And I don't see any problem with it.
Is the short causeway like where the railroad trestle is right there,
Yeah,
okay, and it's
yeah.
kind of like people park and swim there and things like that.
Correct,
So
yeah.
there's one more spot there. And so where will those people park? Where will they park their car?
Property.
Or they're just gonna walk over
Yeah,
there?
so
If you look at the map, their property's right here.
Oh,
so they
just don't
walk
have
right
boat
there.
access.
Correct, yeah, they
Okay,
just
so
bought
they
that,
just
so they
walk
have no
down.
dock.
Okay.
Yeah, and with the water ski team, they have their thing down there a little bit more to the west. And they usually just park at the intersection and
The
walk down
triangle.
to that.
Yeah, and
Right.
they have permission from one of these other property owners too to park on there.
Oh.
So that's gonna be the policy. I think we're at the point where we don't have many subleases, so we'll have to,
Yeah,
Start
I mean,
assessing.
I don't know how many more we could fit there.
no, not many. So for this, since there was a moratorium, having met with Les, the director of that area, not having any concerns, having met with the homeowners and, verifying that they understand they still have to apply for the shoreline permit for their dock, all the docking has to be approved, final exact spot that has to be approved. I would go ahead and seek a motion to approve the non-adjacent sublease for Max Good along the short causeway, in Les's district.
Are you wanting to make that motion?
Yes. So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, we will take a vote. Malcolm? Aye. Steve is aye. I'm an aye.
Aye.
Mike?
I'm good. I'm an aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
All right, next, as we're doing the mapping, again, the map is kind of fluid as far as going through updating. As we're doing the mapping, there were areas that people who had been paying a sublease were in fact riparian owners. According to the GIS, they were able to get off that. We've also had areas where
There were people that what? Back
that
up.
there were people that were riparian owners that have been paying a sublease.
And they didn't need to.
They didn't need to, and then based on the new GIS data, they're like, hey, wait a second, it looks like we're riparian when I go to this, and it's good, yes, according to that, you
They
are.
didn't ask for refund, did they?
No, they didn't. So I mean, it kind of goes both ways. There was one area where there is a handful of docks. This is east of Point Eidolon. And actually, the impetus for this was we had noticed that according to the GIS and our policies, anything that is placed on City of Bloomington Utilities properties requires a sublease to place the dock there. Historically, this has not had one.
None of those docks have it?
Correct, in the past. So we have sent out the subleases for that, and we have drafted a letter stating that based on the current GIS data, that we have and our policies in place that these will require a sublease to place a dock moving forward. And we actually have Rex Taylor, who is here, who's one of these property owners, and we wanted to go ahead to present it to the board. That way it's kosher, everybody knows it, and then we will send an official LLCD letter on our letterhead stating that they're being assessed one based on the docking location.
So this is up by,
Pam's.
okay, cause, and then Lakewood comes down here. And then
Yeah,
the road
correct.
is over
Yeah.
there. Okay.
And since we only have one person, our disposal site is to the west over here. Point Eidolon would be this area, then further to the west. And I don't know, actually we have Rex Taylor here, who was one of the people that had received the letter. Do you have any input or?
About, when I saw that GIS, it looked to me like you're right. Yeah, but in fact, there's even in the corner of that woods, down about where it looks like where you start with the yellow, or actually where the
In
white,
this
the white
area?
line is our property lines, right? I mean, that.
Yeah.
Correct, these are the property lines.
That's the
yes.
property line. Well,
Yeah.
if you go all the way over to the woods, you can put your pointer up at the corner property line, there's actually a metal stake. I walked over there last weekend and stood there and looked at it, and you can look right down, and it does cross the very front of the boat access area and takes over the Darlings, the front, that little corner of the Darlings too.
And then on this area too, like this whole corner over here currently has sublease. So I just wanted to come present that, say based on our current GIS data, this area is being,
Seems right. Yeah.
all
Okay.
right. So I don't think we need an official motion that I wanted to present it. We will send letters saying that they're assessed that.
That was what my wife was her concern. She thought that we ought to do is the board should actually say, well, this is a new, you're presenting new stuff to the board and they would approve, the new sublease map area or whatever.
Are you gonna do all the maps just at some point? Is that what you said you're gonna come back or no?
Well, the map's kind of ever evolving as the GIS updates and change.
Okay,
We could do, essentially, these are adjacent properties, so there's not the moratorium on them. We have the policy in place. I'm not sure that a motion is
Yeah.
required.
no,
since
I
they're
was just
currently
wondering
following
because like you said, we're like out of space and I think at one point we thought we were gonna kind of get this at show. And it seems like you're doing the work, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of wondering how many, subleases do we have up at like, say, Spillway? And How
Available?
many, no, not available, but how many do we
We have all that
put
data.
in there? So maybe you can get back with.
Yeah,
me on
that was what we
sometime.
presented before, so we do have all
Okay.
that. data.
Now, it looks though that there's more docks there than there are adjacent landowners.
So I think there's multiple parcels for some of the landowners as you can apply for a dock per parcel
Oh,
that you
so they're
own.
back in the back, you think?
So there's multiple docks
Yeah.
and you are allowed within our policies to apply for a sublease per parcel that you own. You're not guaranteed to get it. Since there is space in this room and since you have to cross private property to get there, this location would not be opened up for a non-adjacent.
Okay, but what about that one in the upper right? That does kind of look like a non-adjacent. The building in the upper right.
This area?
The
No, the green roof, I think those are all,
this one
This
right
one?
here.
I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe that's all owned by one of those.
Yeah, I think both of these.
Yeah, I
are
think
owned.
all three of these are owned by the
Is that-
same owner, and this is like a guest house.
Re-roof, that's general, scrimmager.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, you know who it is.
Yeah,
I
I believe-
know, yeah.
We've looked at how many docks are there and how many parcels, and it'll all be.
So we're taking and tying those together for
Okay.
the actual billing. So those have been added based on our policy in the GIS. So I'm gonna get that on the record at the meeting and then we'll have the letter come in.
The only reason I have two pieces, I bought a dock and I couldn't put it all out there because it would go out, it would stretch out into the channel too far and I would seal off my neighbor, so I just thought, well, I just put it up there and I don't really utilize those. I have like a shore station between them. You really can't use the outside pieces anyway, so I only really have two usable dock spaces.
Yeah.
Really, and I had that really little bitty wood one on the corner. I only had that so people could get their kayaks in the water. It's not meant to be a dock for using
Absolutely.
the vote thing. It was just a way to get in. Late.
So that's giving the update on that. Last but not least, we have the beach courtesy dock. I think that's gonna be tabled into the future. Is that correct, Les?
Yeah, I was suggesting that we even wait till March because we'll have our new board member on board at that point, and I know there is differing opinions on this, and it'd be good to have a discussion and a vote when we have a full complement. And we're in
Right.
no hurry, so.
Okay.
So that's into that. I'm gonna kind of squeeze something real quick to do business. I wrote a Ross really to give a recap on,
Oh,
just
yeah.
very fast, like a minute on the polar plunge.
Okay.
We do have the video, that was from it. There's not audio from it. So Ross, if you want to describe like kind of what we.
Well, yeah, we kind of talked
Any
before
stuff.
we officially started. We had about approximately 100 people that signed up and took the plunge itself. We probably had around 150 people at the park. We had both fires in the shelter house going. Here's Monroe County Fire Department and EMS was here. A lot of families with their children. That's the rowing team was out. And this is everyone. We had you can see here, we had a fire on the beach as well.
And Adam diving.
Yeah, it's just from the
right
drone.
here.
So you can see me up in the top. I was
It comes out of
announcing on the
the
PA, so I had to do the countdown. And then
And
start.
people, have you noticed, about 4 seconds have passed? They're out of there.
I know, they're quick.
That was great.
So we did that, what was the final?
Yeah, it was like around $2,500
And
that
is
we
that what
raised.
we're splitting or is that our take?
That's
What we're splitting?
total.
That's total.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
Yeah, they just hung out for
Crazy.
There was some people hanging
They
out.
stayed for 10, 15 minutes, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was
was
big.
crazy.
And really, I think it will be. A lot of people were, it was the first time they had done something like this. I was really surprised how many, folks like that came with their family.
Yeah.
And then,
I was surprised about the kids.
Jess's husband made this video and he called this a dive video, but it's definitely a belly flop.
Yeah, that's-
So this was an event entirely thought up by you? Is that-
Yeah,
Ross gave us this idea.
I've done them in the past and I just think it's a fun,
That's all
and
I
it was
had to.
so easy. I mean, we bought $20 worth of Swiss Miss. I bought some lemon heads to give out just because I thought they were silly. That was basically we cut down some dead tree
Yeah, the fireworks.
grass and it fell on the ground and built a fire out of it, it's not.
Well, and then you bought the beanies.
Yes, but we
Yeah,
made people basically donate to get
Well,
them,
yeah.
so we recovered our cost on that, but there was some cost with the beanies.
It ran out of beanies. We had-
Yes, yeah, we actually ordered more of them.
Well, nothing but compliments on this. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
And then
They
the-
have traditions.
Yes.
You started one.
Inaugural. And then the other thing that we have on the books for a fundraiser at Riddle Point Park, and it should be going out next week for tickets, sponsorships, and
May
that kind of
6th.
thing, is the Riddle Point Boogie. And here's a list of the artists that we already have under contract. The Americana Bluegrass on May 6th from 2 to 10 p.m. That we're gonna do out there. For any of the proceeds will go back into Lake Lemon, so any of the revenues that are made on that. And we're working with a production company on that. So I think our entire cost was $1,200, which was the investment that we had in this for down deposits. We're not really responsible for anything else. And then the revenue over that budget will come back to us.
So
What
plus
was
we
the
ran
other
the
one?
electrical for
We
it.
did run the electric, so we can start hosting.
So we're paying this group to be here. Or they.
These groups are, yeah, but the production company that we're working with, they are on all the contracts, so.
We're not at risk at all.
We're not at risk. I think the overall budget was just over $8,000. We did that $1,200 deposit, and then we're not on the hook for any of that, so.
So what are they gonna charge for a ticket?
We are looking at, with fees and everything, we're trying to keep it reasonable, about $40. And then once it gets closer, we may bump that up a little bit. It's like a 2-tier type system, but we're trying to keep it around $40 so people can come out and have a good time. The goal of this one is to start it, people have a blast, recoup our money, get the donations, which I think will be very good, and then kind of start the traditions. And eventually I'd love to do like a spring and a fall thing.
We're gonna have food trucks.
There will be food trucks, there will be
Beer.
there'll be,
Yeah.
A beverage.
We'll have a beer garden, and those are all permitted through them.
Now, you said donation. I mean, did you mean donation or?
Any of the profit above that budget is gonna be, the proceeds are gonna be donated to
Oh,
Lakeland
okay.
as a fundraising
So is
concert.
there anything roped off, or is it just the park house that?
It's gonna be the.
On the point, it's on the point. So essentially the sections are gonna be roped off at that little isthmus, the walkway, and then that front gate. So it'll just be.
Well, we won't even really have to rip off the isthmus, cause the park itself won't be
It's
open yet.
closed, yeah.
So to get in, you'll have to have it.
I mean,
taken.
people could come up in their boats, so that's it.
Yes, people can come up in their boats, and that, we can't restrict that through our covenants. So, yes, you could just come to your boat and park and watch, but we're hoping that people would still donate if they are taking that route.
We're gonna, yeah, so we'll send out something to everybody and hopefully people can still buy a ticket if they're gonna come by boat. You don't have to, but.
I'm just kind of thinking though, with $40 seems a little steep to me, but.
I think for five bands and 8 hours of music, I mean, you go to a concert at any of these local venues, you're spending $40.
Oh, I thought it was just one band.
No, we have 5 bands from 2 to 10.
Oh,
So,
all right.
Chicago Farmer, Joe's Truck Stop, Hammer Hatchet, then Lasses and Lowlanders. It's all Americana Bluegrass. It's been a little bit, but I'm waiting also on a bid or a quote to build. In our master plan, we had building a shelter back on the point. There used to be one, we tore it down because it's such a state of disrepair. Looking at building a shelter in the timber frame style to match everything else that could be duly used for rentals, events like weddings and stuff like this. So I'm waiting on that quote, and I do think this is like a very good revenue generating investment.
already got power run?
Improvement. We have approved the power to run, so RMC is running that, yeah.
Is it being trenched or?
It's gonna be overhead, so essentially they're running off the existing pole near the bathhouse, shooting straight across, and then we will have our panel and everything in there, so.
And then we're gonna have like we'll additionally get a couple security lights on the point
Yeah.
too, which is gonna be nice just for through the summer.
So I won't get into too much of details on that, I just wanted to give a little heads up, and we're working everything out on that.
Okay. Great. So any new business for next time?
That's so
That was
gone.
it.
Okay, next meeting's gonna be Thursday, February 23rd, here, 6 o'clock. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
First of all, that is the annual meeting, right? That's-
Yes.
That is the
Correct.
annual meeting. Yes.
Adjourn.
Okay, second that. We'll take a voice vote here.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I'm an aye. Thank you.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Good meeting. Thank you, everyone.